educated. Because when one of the one of the symptoms, if you will, or the sickness that you develop when you're educated, is that your mind starts detecting. Sorry for my language, but you know it basically bullshit when you see it, right? So that is why you see the Kero saying no to the status quo and challenging the status quo, because they're educated, especially those in the diaspora. I think we are one of the a highly educated population in immigrant communities. So that's kind of what makes us a little bit different from our parents and grandparents.
So the word Gero itself is often misunderstood or coined in a very bad way by some non-Oromos. As a Gero yourself,
Yes.
just for the record and for everyone, to set the record straight, who is Gero?
And I'm so happy that you asked the question. Simply, it just means young people, right? That's what the word kero for a man, for boys, kero, and then for ladies, it's karre, right? So kero simply means young person. It has no other hidden meaning to it. Maybe you can add to it maybe a young person who's frustrated was the status quo. But yeah, simply put, it just means young person.
Just a young person. So
Very simple.
Oromia
Yes.
is one of the places in the world that has very active group of youth. That is the Gero, very, very
Yes.
active when it comes
Absolutely.
to the
Very
political,
active.
economic, and social
Yes.
affairs of the state.
Mm.
In other countries, the youth are very dormant. They usually don't participate mostly in political affairs. But here in Ethiopia or in Oromia, the youth are there. They usually resist oppression. They're there standing up for human rights. They influence the political change in that country. Why do you think the youth in Oromia are different from youth elsewhere?
Uh, I wouldn't say they're different, because that will be kind of sort of generalizing. I think youth are active in their own way, in different parts of the world. I think really what makes the Keros and the Karis unique, in my opinion, in that country is because again, when you're educated, it's very difficult to see the injustices and the the oppression and just sit back, right? So that's they're suffering with the symptom that I just mentioned, of being educated, of being exposed to the world and seeing the way in which other developed countries are running. So you know they have no other alternative but to be engaged, to be politically aware, in order to have a better life in that country and in order to grow that country, which they love so much, by the way, although they're sort of being labeled and kind of being portrayed as people that separatists and this and that, just kind of given a different type of name. They care about that country and they genuinely wanted to develop that country, right? So in my opinion, I think that's really what makes them unique, and what will, I think, will really help that country grow is if that energy is cultivated, and kind of put toward on the right direction rather than trying to suppress the voices and the concerns of the young people in that country.
Do you think it's paying off? The youth
Absolutely,
being outspoken and everything?
no, absolutely, right? Although of course, it comes with a cost. Even this, the Sami, reform came by the expenses of thousands of Keros and Karis and other young people within the country who are frustrated with the status quo, wanted to change it, right? So, absolutely, yes. Is it costly? Are they losing their lives over it? Absolutely. If they don't fight it now, it becomes generational. This oppression and suppression came from their grandparents and from their parents, and then now they can't just sit back and wait for their kids to go through the same struggle and the same oppression. So as much as this has cost, I would say it's worth it, because I think that country needs those type of minds and those type of spirit, and I think I'm very, very optimistic that we are going to have a better country because of these young people who are frustrated and who are expressing their frustration.
Mm-hmm. So moving into the political state or the current affairs in Ethiopia, when Abiy first came to power, that was seen as a culmination of the struggle. So he was showered with praises both locally and internationally. Described as a reformist, he even became a peace laureate. But now people are resisting him, especially in Oromia. What do you think went wrong?
A very good point that you touched upon. I think it is important that we give the credit what it's due. So absolutely, he did a phenomenal job. Actually, this guy came into power, let's not forget, by the support of the Keros Negarres and other young people around the country. He did amazing things, things that really shocked the world, and particularly the African countries. I mean, I remember some of my friends were saying, "Oh my God, Ethiopia is going to be seen as this, an ideal place, right, where people can look at it and say, oh my God, our country might one day be like that, right?" So he did amazing. A couple of things that he did. He started out. The first action that he took was he released all the political prisoners. Right, and by numbers, the thousands that have been arrested and have been tortured, by the previous regime. He released all of them, and that was amazing. And then he went on. He invited all the various political parties that had been, exiled by the past administration, regime, and in fact, some of which were labeled as a terrorist organization. He invited all these people to come in, and really, in fact, he went on to do beyond the domestic issues. Right, he was solving issues that were happening between, our neighboring countries, and for which, he, as you, alluded to. He received the Nobel Peace Prize, and we were all happy for him. Every person was celebrating this guy for the amazing job he was doing. And then he took a different route. He took a different turn. It took south, as we say here in America. So I think that's we can talk a little bit about. Some of the actions that he took that became problematic, and that led into where we are today in this chaos.
So what happened? Like, how did we find ourselves, or how did Ethiopia find itself in the situation that they are right now?
Very good question. Very good question. So, as I just mentioned, after doing all these, amazing things, I think before I go on and explain some of the factors that contributed to why we are here, I think it is vitally important that we discuss a little bit about sort of the political dynamic of Ethiopia, particularly, including the historical, right? So let me try to explain this in a way that it will be understood, particularly by the younger demographic, which might not have much interest in the kind of the core political rhetoric, right? Yeah. So in Ethiopia, and this is purely subjective opinion, right? In my opinion, you have two camps in Ethiopia, right? One camp believes that, and they believe genuinely, right, that the best of Ethiopia is behind us, right? It's within our history. It's basically what they refer to as their golden era. That's why you see today, people celebrating and so passionately, literally worshiping those past leaders like people like Menelik and Haile Selassie and all those. And by doing that, they are also advocating and celebrating the system which they utilized to govern the country, right? And they genuinely believe that in order for Ethiopia to progress, to get back to that golden era, we have to go back to that time where everyone was holding hand and doing iskista and just singing to one flag, to one everything, this united, this utopia view of the world, right? That's one camp. Okay, and then you have another camp over here, to which I happen to belong, who say, no. The best of Ethiopia is actually ahead of us. It's a country which we can create. We can engineer the country that could serve everyone equally, fairly, with a just, right, where everyone have this opportunity is given not based on the language you speak or where you come from, but rather based on a merit, right? So we believe that to have this amazing country that we all want, the solution is not to go back, because going back for us, the history that this camp celebrates, the people that this camp celebrate for us are the people who have oppressed our ancestors, our parents, and our grandparents. So we're saying, no. Let's create a new system by which every one of us can live in harmony and create a prosper country. I have to share this with you real quick. Mm-hmm. When I was in my undergrad, I decided to take one grad level course. So in that course, I was the only, Black person, and they all of them were kind of elderly, Caucasian in the class. And then somehow one thing led to another, and the professor asked, what do you guys consider to be the best time of your generation? Without thinking, the majority of them say the 50s, which for them, it was just that was when they thought was the best time, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting there scratching my head. The 50s, it couldn't be the worst time for other group of people. For to take, African Americans. That's the moment when, they used to say, sir, to white man and get up from their chair to sit a white man. That was a terrible time to express that. And then, we kind of came to some type of agreement, right? In the same way, I'm not trying to compare, the race issues with what we have here, but oppression is oppression. It doesn't matter whether you're oppressed by someone who has a different color from you, or whether you're oppressed with someone who has with a similar skin color with you. So here, what you have is, in the same way, the person whom this camp celebrates in worships, for us, it's pain, right? For us, it's the person that has got us to where we are today. So, in general, I think this is kind of what's happening. So, to move on to why we are here, when Dr. Abiy came to power, for many of us, the hope was that this guy will start out by addressing these fundamental issues within the country, right? Mm-hmm. We were hoping he would start with, for example, the national, reconciliation, bring people together and discussion. Personally, I was hoping that he will spend the first 90 days doing nothing else but try to solve this historical pain and grievances that so many people have before moving on, right? However, the first mistake that he did was, rather than acknowledging this and trying to solve this, he actually leaned too much towards one camp and started advocating for this fake and artificial Ethiopianism that everyone is tired of. Literally, the guy turned into an old used car salesman, right? And he started selling this Andinet, this, Ethiopian, all this stuff to the people who are saying, look, man, we had this car before and gave us hard time. That's why we want something different. But he kept pushing on people so much so to a point where he wrote a book about this, right? Explaining why he thinks this Ethiopian, people holding hand and singing Kumbaya and forgetting about anything else, about their historical pain and grievances, and basically just let's move on. Let's develop this country. What we need to worry about is economic development, the political, everybody's free now. So he downplayed. And so his view of the pain and the suffering with indifference got us to where we are today. Mm-hmm. To kind of summarize, I hope that's kind of clear for people who are a little bit confused of like, what is it really? Isn't he like Oromo? Why are Oromos like right now? Can they have enough? This is kind of the question that is kind of percolating in a lot of people.
The question is actually that people asking online, like the Prime Minister is now Oromo. Most
exactly,
of the positions are
right?
held by Oromo. Can these people be satisfied, for once? And
exactly.
The there,
Thank you. Absolutely. So here's the thing. Oromos have never fought to have Oromo in power. That's not what we're looking for, right? If we needed that, unbeknown to many people, presidents have been Oromos in the past, 30 years, right? Nagaso Gidada, from Nagaso Gidada to, many others as a symbolic. They have put, just some Oromo who didn't care much about Oromo affairs and even the country affairs. So that's not really our problem. If just to give an example, if, Jawar or Marara Gudina or, Bakala Garba to become prime minister today, and if they're to shift slightly away from a true democracy and a freedom for everyone in that country, I will be the first one that will be opposing them. I think this is where a lot of people are having a hard time understanding because their image of the Keros and the Oromos is based on, the image that our enemies has perpetuated and have shown us. So we just look like, people who just kind of like brutal chaos. No. We want a true democracy in that country. That's what we're not satisfied with just a name. So that's exactly what this guy did, right? Dr. Abiy did. He wanted to just bring people together with this fake and artificial way of uniting, right? And it's like almost two people coming to you after having conflict and saying, hey, we have an issue. Can you solve for us? And you say to them, hey, you're with me right now. Shake hand and let's start dancing. Yeah, for the moment, they might dance to satisfy you, but when they go away, they're going to go back at each other because you have not gotten to the core of the problem. So that's what this guy, I think he had an amazing opportunity. He had a golden opportunity, and we all had that hope, right? Especially he had the ears of everyone because he was talking about forgiveness and everything. That it was just rhetoric, right? He didn't put it into action, and especially he neglected and overlooked the pain and the suffering of so many oppressed and marginalized groups in that country. So that is the first mistake that he did, okay? The second mistake, in my opinion, was although he invited all the organizations and from abroad, he brought them into the country and then just literally left them on the limbo. So people are just going around doing their thing, and he's focused on his own stuff. And we all were questioning, and some intellectuals were also, kind of raising some concerns, right? Because like he was supposed to, because he was talking about, reform and about moving the country towards democracy. But when it comes to action, he wasn't negotiating with these parties, with these various parties. By the way, parties is not just regular parties. These are parties who's opposing ideas, right, and ideologies. So to have, people like this and to literally just ignore them and just go about your business would, I think, the second mistake. And it was a damaging and a suicidal mistake that he made. That was the second one.
The second one.
And the third mistake that this guy did is, you know, moving a little bit towards the, you know, the one side of a political spectrum is one thing, but constantly telling people on the other side the same thing that the other camp has been saying, which is, oh, you know, they use this word like abab, right? You know, to express, you know, when people question the status quo, when people say, hey, you know, this Ethiopia thing that you're talking about does not serve me. I'm not included in that, right? So he started using that kind of, you know, rhetoric that really made people uncomfortable and question where his heart is, right? Mm-hmm. So all these combined, I think really led to this. And obviously, of course, you know, after, you know, Hachalu Hundesa's death, while people are warning, you know, he, instead of, you know, comforting the country, he went on to arrest the people, you know, the leaders who people admired and who spoke for the people. I don't care if you agree with, you know, Jawar's, you know, political, you know, leadership style, but he is a person who is loved and respected by large, you know, vast majority of particular Oromo people and even many other you know, marginalized groups in that country. So that really created this anger and to get us to a place where it is very difficult to go back from.
Like you said, I'll just take you back. You said there's a split on ideas of how Ethiopia should look like or how Ethiopia should be governed. The split is actually clear from how people reacted to Hachalu's murder, the killings going on in the country, destruction of property, and the protests that have taken place both in the country and in the diaspora. And we had over the weekend the protest in DC where two young men were shot in DC.
Absolutely.
What does this tell us anyway? Is there no common factor for Ethiopians to unite? And is there no common thing that brings them together? And will any of these groups anyway be satisfied with the other's leadership?
That's a very, very good question. You know, of course, right? You know, when you have, you know, two people who are, you know, really, really passionate, you know, about what they believe is the best for the country, of course, you know, you're going to have, you know, conflict, and you are going to have, and this is going to continue, by the way. It's not something that's going to end very soon. And this is why, you know, it would have been, this was a missed opportunity. It would have been an amazing opportunity to bring these people together and to talk and to, you know, have dialogue and to, you know, have a discourse on in this areas, right? And that's what's missing in that country and also abroad, right? Everyone is shouting on their own corner and no one is really speaking to each other because we've all have labeled one another, and the leaders are not doing a great job on bringing people together. So until, you know, I think especially those of us who are young and who have sort of a different perspective, come together and discuss our differences, I'm gravely concerned about the state and the affairs of that country, because this is going to continue. This chaos. Can you imagine, you know, the shooting happening in a like United States? What do you expect that's going to happen back home? It will be worse, right? So to answer your question, do we have a common ground? Of course, we have a common denominator. We have a country together at the end of the day, right? But I think it's about one camp understanding the pain and the historical grievances of the other, and the other side also understanding, you know, the passion and the you know, the deep feeling of, you know, one camp kind of, you know, clinged to the past history, right? So if we can, create a common denominator and really discuss, talk, dialogue, and I think, to give him credit, this is what, Jawar was crying for. Honestly, if people weren't blinded by politics and just simply saw him as, just this guy, he was really saying, let's talk, let's discuss, because discussion isn't always going to be pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you discuss, unless you talk to each other, then there is no moving forward. So I think the best way we can, come to some sort of commonality is through discussion. And by the way, you don't have to agree, right? I don't have to be bought by what the other camp is selling, and the other camp does not have to buy in our what we're selling, right? But I think as people who have one country, we do have to come together and we do have to discuss about this.
Mm-hmm. You said everyone is discussing their own things in their own corners, and in the midst of all this uncertainty and everyone championing for their own interest, I think they're neglecting the important issues of the country. It has very many poor people, the majority who are poor, and people have a lot of problems. Yes, the historical injustices are there, but politicians also benefiting from this split, and they do not want people to speak in one language. Don't you think it's the mass that is actually losing? People are actually losing. It's
Absolutely. There's a saying, there is a Romo saying, "Arbalama wallolu mitin jaladuti," which roughly translated, when two elephants fight, it's the ants that gets hurt in the middle, right? So of course it's the poor and the particularly the marginalized of our country that gets hurt. But let me put it this way for you, okay? Why, a lot of times, I get this question, oh, you know what, you're a Harvard grad and you're this and that, you're educated. Why would you focus on, you take one tribe and focus on that tribe? Let me explain to people why we're so focused on that, okay? Mm-hmm. I hope this helps. Ethiopia is the only country in sub-Saharan Africa that has never been colonized. This is a fact, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you take other African countries that were colonized, even here in this country, if people argue with us saying, oh, why Africa is the way it is, then we can justify saying that, oh, well, that thing that they call colonization, it hasn't gone away, right? Still there. The residual effect of colonization is still there. It's still, the countries that are colonized, certain African countries, are still governing through proxy, right? So, and through cultural domination. We can say that about those countries. We can justify the poverty of that country with that. However, for Ethiopia, we can't do that, right? Because they're telling us, look, you guys are not colonized, but why are you still of the lowest of the low, right? This is the question that we all have to ask, and this is the question that we as Kairos have understood, right? So why? This is the question that I think everyone have to ask themselves, even those people who are, heated with politics. I think we need to step back, and instead of just celebrating, this idea of not being colonized as like something out of this world, we need to step back and say, we've never been colonized. But why are we one of the lowest country on earth? I will tell you why. You see, Ethiopia is the one country that I'm aware of that oppresses and suppresses nearly 80% of its population while functioning with the remaining few percent, okay? If I'm to give you an analogy,